Welcome to Pregnant in the Netherlands. This is a continuation of our discussion on doulas. So if you missed the first part of this conversation, go back and listen to Let's Doula This, all about the birth doula part 1. In the second part of the conversation, we're going to explore the benefits of doulas in childbirth. We're going to discuss the importance of how doulas provide emotional and physical support during labor, and you'll learn how to choose the right doula for you. So let's dive back in. Having a doula by your side, there's a lot more research coming out now. Pretty good
Finally.
research. Yeah. About the benefits of having continuous support by the birthing person's side from a doula. So having a doula reduces the likelihood of interventions, having things like an episiotomy, having synthetic oxytocin given to help speed up labor or to start labor, or even it reduces the chance of having a C-section or cesarean birth. And then people who have had doulas have had shorter labors, which is pretty awesome. And people who have had doulas have much higher satisfaction with their birth experience.
Yes, and I think it's important to mention some numbers here.
Yeah.
That even 80% of birthing women report a more positive and satisfying birth experience if they had a doula. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the interventions, like it's 10-15% reduced likelihood of requesting an epidural.
Mm-hmm.
And also at the cesarean rate you mentioned, 39% less likely to have a cesarean.
That's a big reduction.
Yes.
And we want to avoid cesareans because who wants to recover from major surgery while also caring for a brand new baby?
If it's not necessary.
Yeah. And then I wanted to mention that having a more satisfying birth experience gets into the long-term benefits of having a doula. Some of the long-term benefits are things like reduced chance of postpartum depression and anxiety. You have an enhanced bonding with your baby and an overall well-being. You're more satisfied with your partner. People who have had doulas have higher breastfeeding rates at 6 weeks postpartum.
You know how many? I just looked it up. Around
Ooh, tell me.
60 to 80% of women with doula support are still breastfeeding at 6 weeks postpartum.
That's fantastic. And then my favorite fact, or my favorite long-term benefit, is that parents who have had doulas present at their birth of their baby, their self-perception is that they are the best ones to take care of their baby.
Mm-hmm.
So having a doula gives them confidence to parent, which is incredible.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate goal of everyone who becomes parents.
Right? Yeah, you want to do the best for your child. And so you're
You want
already
to know that you're capable
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
caring for your baby.
Yeah. So, we know that doulas are awesome, not only because we're both our doulas, but the research says so. So, if someone were to want to hire a doula, what should they look for in their doula?
I also had a doula at my second birth. For me personally, was really important that I have a really good chemistry with that person. And also when I work with my clients, that's what I love the most, when I have the feeling that I'm a family member.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had that with my doula, that she was just so easy to talk to work with, and she knew exactly what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, okay, I find it so difficult because you're a doula. You know everything about childbirth and about physiological birth and everything. So it was a different project for her. But she did such an amazing job in the meetings. And she just felt what I needed. And she still asked me a lot of questions about my wishes, my preferences. And it was important for her to understand what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really important thing in a doula, that they genuinely have interest in what you want and what you prefer.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like having a really good feeling about the connection that you have with the person that you're meeting, the doula that you're
Yes.
meeting, and then, yeah, them showing that they have your interests at the forefront of it all.
Yes. And then, of course, it's important that someone has a relevant experience. For me, it was personally important that it would be someone who already gave birth. I didn't know anything about doulas before
Mhm.
I got pregnant. I know other amazing doulas who didn't go through it yet and themselves. I admire that they are so conscious, so intentional. Yeah, having the experience was definitely important for me.
Yeah. So, I have a question. Um, how does the Dutch healthcare system view doulas? Maybe in the hospital or the midwife? Yeah, we'll go with overall.
The Dutch healthcare system, pretty good. I've met midwives, gynecologists, nurses who were brilliant and really cooperative, really lovely, and they just welcomed me with open arms, and it was such a nice experience to work with them. But on the other hand, I also had experience with healthcare professionals who were looking at me like, yeah, what are you doing here? And like I had the impression they didn't really say anything mean,
Yeah.
but just the feeling. And I always go there with a big smile, and that I don't want to interfere. I don't want to interrupt. I'm really here for my client.
Uh-huh.
I might ask questions to help my client to understand what is happening. It really depends on the person who is
Okay.
on the shift at that
Yeah.
moment, or if she or he had a bad day or whatever bad experience, sometime maybe in the past with the doula. Mostly, it's really nice and positive experience.
And is the term doula something that people are familiar with? Like midwives and gynecologists
Yes,
and
yeah,
nurses? Okay.
definitely. Yeah, I had other ones with a nurse, the kraamverzorgster in Dutch. I think most of the people know them like that, and it would translate
Yeah.
maternity nurse who is coming to your home after birth and also during birth. And she just came to the home, and she was like, "Yeah, I've never worked with a doula. What do you do?" So I had to explain her, but that was only once.
Yeah. And what about in Hungary? Are doulas common there?
More and more, but they are not welcome,
Okay.
unfortunately. They
Okay.
are really fighting for the rights for a change that not only the father would be able to come to the hospital, or even that sometimes doula is welcome, but only when the father is not there. So only one
Oh, I
person.
see. Uh-huh.
And then they all often change that the father has to sit on the corridor, and the
Oh,
doula is
goodness.
allowed to come in, or the doula has to sit on the corridor and wait, and the father can come in. And it's just a nice exception when both the doula and the father can be at birth and supporting the birthing person.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we are like 40 years back, I think, if you have to compare it to the Netherlands and the Dutch system. It's so nice that we are welcome here in the hospitals.
Yeah. Yeah, in, the US, where I gave birth, it very much depends on the part of the country that you live in, how prevalent doulas are and how accepted, they are by the hospital, because the majority of people give birth in the hospital, and, it's very much hospital dependent and even, yeah, parts of the regions of the country. And then in Vietnam, where I also gave birth, the doulas are definitely not something that hospitals are familiar with, and
Oh,
I don't
really?
think that it's something that they are very open to.
Mhm.
Yeah, they like to have a lot of control over the birth room and who can enter it
Mm.
and how the
Yeah,
birth goes.
that's a pity.
Yeah.
So birth workers have a different starting point there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, Juliana, do you have any stories to share about your experience as a birth doula in the Netherlands?
Yes, I do. Plenty. But I thought I would start with a quite shocking one. Like, yeah, you can decide if it's
Okay.
shocking or not. When we started to work together with this client, one of her first sentence was, "Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I want an epidural and I don't want you to talk me out of it." So I nodded. I was like, "Okay, I understand. That's your choice. That's your decision and preference. I just support you in any way you want me to." But then once when labor started, weeks later, of course, and I was called by her husband, and I just came to the bathroom where she was laying in her pink bikini, and she was really like a goddess. Warm water on her body, and she was just dealing with the contractions so beautifully. She still wanted to go to the hospital, so they called a midwife, and she came to check the dilation, and she was like, "Okay, if you want to go to the hospital, this is the time to go to the hospital." So fast forward, we are at the hospital, and she has 8 centimeter dilation already, and there was no time for epidural, and in no time she was just her cervix was fully dilated. That means that, yeah, actually she is just able to push whenever she has the urge, and she couldn't believe it. She was like, "Wow, what? I did that just on my own without epidural, but I wanted epidural the entire time." She was so good, and she was just dealing with it so nicely. And yeah, that was a big surprise for me. In the end, it turned out just super positive for her that she could give birth naturally,
That's so cool.
powerful and strong.
Yeah, I love when people can really realize the amazing strength and power that they have inside them.
Yes. Yeah, when you
Yeah.
see that everything is going so good, so smooth, it's so beautiful to witness that. I have another story that showcases the awesomeness, as you put it, of doulas. But first, a bit of a background on hospital protocols. Hospitals follow a specific timeline during labor. There are expectations on how quickly each stage should progress. For example, there is a limited amount of time allowed for the cervix. Cervix is that's the opening at the base of the uterus, which needs to stretch open for the baby to pass through. Yeah, words like cervix, these are no words that you normally use or know when you learn English as a second or third language. These are really the words that you learn when you become pregnant. End of side note. Back to the hospital protocols. So limited time allowed for the cervix to be fully dilated and also for the pushing stage. So for the baby pass through and be born. I had this client, a really remarkable woman who was laboring beautifully, but she was also incredibly exhausted. All she wanted was a moment to rest, to drift off. She even fell asleep occasionally in between contractions in the bathtub. And after a while, it seemed like her body was also getting tired. And the hospital staff began to suggest intervening because they were concerned that she might become too exhausted too. And yeah, labor didn't really progress after about 6, 7 centimeters. So at one point, the midwife suggested starting oxytocin, and then the mother was like, "Yeah, you decide. I don't know." And she just waved at her husband that you have to decide. And that was the moment when I thought, okay, wait a second. He's not the person who should decide in this situation. So I turned to the healthcare team and I asked them if there are any alternatives or if they can get extra time. The response was that, well, she has been out of the bath and moving and walking. You tried already a lot of things, but labor is still stagnating. So we don't really see other options. But we can definitely give you some extra time. I asked them to give us 2 minutes. And then it was really nice. They were like, no problem. They came back, I think 15 minutes later, something like that. So that time, we really had the chance with the couple to evaluate the situation, to breathe, to discuss. I explained them what is actually the situation. Why do they suggest that they should start the oxytocin? And then when the midwife and the nurse returned, my clients had reached their decision and they just agreed on the oxytocin. So you would say that in the end, the outcome was the same because, yeah, they suggested the oxytocin and they, the couple accepted it. But the real difference was that they really took control.
Yeah.
If it was the first case scenario, decisions would have been made above her head and she would be just, okay, do whatever is needed and whatever you think should be done in this situation. And then afterwards, she told me that she was in control. That made a big difference.
Yeah.
That she was really empowered. Yeah, she was in control.
Yeah. And I
That's the
bet
main message here.
she had, a much more satisfying experience because
Yes.
of that.
And the only thing I did was asking questions, actually, 2, 3 questions. Are there alternatives? Is it possible to wait? Can we get 2 minutes? And those are not no issues. Mostly
Right.
there is no urgency, and you just have time to get 2 more minutes to think about your options.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's really beautiful.
Did it did it sound like a sales pitch?
No. No. No.
No, there was no intention in that. But if you fell in love with us, with anything we were sharing, feel free to check our websites or our Instagram if you have questions, doubts about doulas. And that doesn't mean that you have to hire me or hire Anna. It
Yeah.
means that you have things you would like to just consider around your birth.
Yeah. Yeah. We are here to support. So to kind of close off, I wanted to summarize some of the awesomeness of doulas.
Yes, good
So
idea.
doulas provide continuous support during labor, and they help kind of create a safe space for the birthing person and their partner and their birth partner. They provide physical and emotional and informational support during pregnancy and labor and birth. Having a doula at your birth can reduce your likelihood of having a cesarean birth, epidurals, need for synthetic oxytocin. It can shorten labors and it can lead to a much more satisfying birth experience, which has the amazing long term benefits of the confidence to parent your child. You can find a doula by contacting one of us, or you can find a doula in a number of different doula directories. I think that there's a doula directory in the Netherlands.
Yes. So doula.nl is definitely one where I'm not listed. But obviously, you can search for where you live and who are the doulas available there. And you can always Google.
Yeah. Well, this was a great conversation about doulas. If
Yes.
I ever give birth again, I would definitely have a doula by my side.
Yes, me too. And then hopefully she will be on time. Because my doula just missed my birth. Not my birth, my son's birth. But you know what? She still meant a lot. When she arrived, and the placenta still had to be born.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, everyone just wanted to dress up my baby. And I was like, yeah, okay, if that needs to be done now. Then there are the clothes and stuff like that. And she was like, does that baby need clothes right now? He can just stay on mom's breast, right? And under a blanket. And I was like, oh, yes, yes, this is what I want. I don't want clothes between us. So it was just a tiny thing, but I still
Yeah.
think back and I have the feeling that, oh, yeah, that was so nice.
Yeah. Yeah. She
Make a
kept that
difference.
bubble between,
Yes,
surrounding you
definitely.
and your baby. Well, that's lovely. Well, this was a fantastic conversation, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for listening.
It was so nice to talk about our passion, about being a doula. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Anna. And
I
thanks
did
for
too.
listening.
Thanks so much.
Stay tuned. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening to our doula episodes on Pregnant in the Netherlands. If you enjoyed this discussion on doulas, please leave a review or tell a friend. This will help us spread the word so more expecting expats in the Netherlands can find our show. You can find Pregnant in the Netherlands on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or your favorite podcast listening platform. Make sure you like or subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Make sure you're also subscribed so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're in the Eindhoven region, join one of our monthly Expecting Together pregnancy and postpartum meetups, where you can find support, connection, and advice from us, two passionate doulas. You can find more information at pregnantineindhoven.com. Until next time.